My name's Scott Bomar, and we're going to be speaking today about doing a 360 deal with yourself. And for those of you who aren't sure what a 360 deal is, that's where a record label that your artist or group does a deal with, they not only take proceeds from your record, but your publishing and your merchandise. And I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, and I have a record label there and a band called the Bo Keys and a recording studio, and I'm pretty familiar with doing a 360 deal with myself. I'm currently not affiliated with a record label and end up doing everything myself, and it's a lot of work, but there are pros and cons to it. But I'm going to go around and get everybody to all of our panelists to introduce themselves. I'm going to start down here with Scott.
My name is Scott Canale. I'm an attorney in Atlanta, Georgia with the law firm Canale & Kumar. I've been practicing law for 17 years now, 15 of which have been in the music industry. 90% of my client base is music industry, and probably of that, probably 70% of it is non-major record company artists or labels. I currently represent a little over 300 independent record companies and watch as their development occurs and try to keep them on the right path, saying record deals are not necessarily these days, and you can really kind of make the money on your own, but you've got to do it like a business. I also chair the Southern Regional Entertainment and Sports Law Conference. It's an entertainment law conference. It's recognized as the third or fourth largest entertainment law conference in the world, and this year it's going to be in the Dominican Republic.
Nice choice. And next.
I'd like to introduce Scott Canale.
That's me.
I'm sorry, Adam Shipley.
That's all right.
Pardon me.
All right. My name's Adam Shipley. Wow, that's loud. You can probably use without that. I'm Adam Shipley. I manage the Preservation Hall Jazz Band, and I'm director of Preservation Hall, the venue. I've also have my own company called Hepcat Enterprises that I've had for the last 20 years, where I do consulting and also a little bit of band management. I manage Marva Wright and the BMWs, and then buy for different clients for festivals and corporate events. I used to be with Tipitina's for 9 years up till about 2 years ago. There we are.
And Brian Calhoun from Soundexchange.
Hi, my name is Brian Calhoun. I work at Soundexchange. I'm the VP of New Media and External Affairs. For those of you who don't know, Soundexchange is a performing rights organization similar to the other performing rights organizations that you may know, ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC. However, we do not collect for the writers and the publishers, but we in fact collect for the performers and the owners of the sound recordings, usually record labels. And we collect on certain performances, non-interactive digital performances. So for instance, if you sing a song and you own the master and it is played on digital performances like Sirius satellite radio or internet radio like Pandora, Music Choice, the cable stations as well, we actually collect royalties from those services and pay the performers and the owners of the sound recording. I've only been there for about 10 months, but I've worked at labels, distribution companies. I've worked quite a bit with management, do new media consulting, work in a management capacity with an artist group called Dead Prez. I've developed some tools for independent musicians, which I sell online, which is Music Business Toolbox, musicbusinesstoolbox.com, and do quite a bit of consulting work with a management company called Hip Hop Since 1978. They manage Kanye West, Drake, Lil Wayne, Young Jeezy. So I kind of work with those guys on some of the new media issues.
Thanks, guys. In the time that I've been in the music business, which I started out pretty young, so it's been over half my life, it's changed immensely, and especially the past 5 years with digital downloading, the internet. It's just everything changes daily, and for a lot of artists that I meet these days, a record deal, doesn't even seem to be a reality for them. The that when I started off in making records, there really wasn't the independent label boom of the 90s really hadn't even happened yet. And if you wanted to put a record out, everybody, it was all about the major labels picking you up. And that the game's totally changed now, and you, as an artist or a band, you have to have the tools and be prepared to do pretty much all the work yourself. So you have to put a team together, and there's a couple of key ingredients to that. And these days, if you're doing a 360 deal with yourself, you're not necessarily making a deal with a record label. You're having to make a deal with maybe a producer or a studio owner or even other people that are in your band. So I was going to go and have these guys kind of tell you some tips or pointers or give you some advice as far as putting a team together and some of the key ingredients and key things that key team members that you need to make it happen. If any of you guys want to speak about that.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Hire a lawyer.
Very
I say it with a little bit of a smile outside the side of my face on it, but it's true. You've got a lot of things you have to do. I think going through a statistic that I find absolutely fascinating, that in 2008 there were 89,000 songs released that are recognized. That doesn't count people who are releasing songs that weren't very successful or a little, maybe 100-run CD manufacturing on it, or even a digital distribution on it. But I got to get the mic here. But it's 89,000 that they're recognizing. Of that, the majors are claiming 9,000. And of that, some of those are greatest hits albums. Some of them are repackaged albums. And most of them are second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh albums on the same artist. So very few of them are on new artists. So what that tells you is that people are releasing music on their own. And when I say 89,000 recognized albums are out there, these are ones that are on the map. These are ones that are being recognized, whether through BDS or other technologies, even Soundexchange or performing rights organizations that are finding these things and collecting on them. It's devastating when somebody goes into this that is not prepared. And I'm going to make my comment, and I was lecturing at the University of Georgia. I had a kid in the audience that really wanted to come up and kick my ass. And he was so upset by my comment on this that he was livid, just sitting there livid. And my comment is, in the old days, artists had a concept that it's all about the music, man. Dude, it's just about the music. I just want to make music. And at that point in time, only major labels were really engaged. They were the ones that had the capabilities doing it, and the artists just, here, take my music. I just want to play music. You guys do your thing. But that's not so anymore. The record deals are so few and far between that the artist has to get involved. It's a business. It's just a straight-up business. And here's where he got mad, is that I said there is no difference in a music artist and the product that he makes than any other business, such as a bakery, an insurance agency, or a law firm. You do the exact same things. You have to have a good product, and you have to have customers. And in all this, when you're getting your good product and your customers, you have to have all your legal transitions taken care of. You need to know exactly why you're not going to get sued so you can at least live comfortably. But when you work in the world of copyright and other intellectual properties, lawsuits are not only there, but they're big and they're expensive. And so getting prepared to handle these issues in the federal court, where you're going to have to hire a lawyer that's going to be extremely expensive to cover your butt, that you've got to have all of your bases covered. I made a little checklist that I just want to read off, and I'm quite certain that I don't have everything listed in this checklist. But it sounds a little intimidating, just things you need to cover if you're going to run your band as a business or if you're going to run your independent record label. Things you're going to need: lawyer, incorporation and shareholder papers and agreements, band agreements, artist or label and indie label is going to have to handle all this. Copyright registrations, trademark registrations, business plans, recording budget, prep and studio arrangements, producer agreements, side feature artist agreements, session agreements, mixer agreements, mastering house, copyright split forms, work for hire, mechanical licenses, song, beat, and copyright purchases, master use sample licenses, manager agreements, booking agent, live performance agreements, business agents, licensing agents agreements, performing rights registration, Soundexchange registration, union association, UPC barcodes, ISRC codes, traditional distribution, digital distribution, street team relations, radio promotion, merchandise fulfillment. That's a lot of agreements that you've got to get into place, and it's scary. And so when you're doing this, I want you all to think in terms of it that you're just a business. Granted, you're a lot cooler than other businesses, but it's just a business, and you've got to take care of it and have fun with it at the same time. And I could really yap about this for hours, that how I want people to really kind of get involved. I want everybody here to get involved because I know these guys, and I know I'm going to say no, and I want to hear from them as well, and I can jump back in here a little bit and talk about some of the other issues that are a little more complex, and maybe if you got questions about some of these particular agreements, I'd love to jump in with them.
Yeah, he certainly did hit a lot of the things that you need to cover. There's definitely a lot that you do have to cover, and I can understand. I certainly understand why the artist was probably that. One of the issues I think the artists have is that Scott mentioned is that the artists do look at their art as art, but the thing is that there's actually got to be some kind of there is an intersection between art and commerce, and finding that point and being able to effectively exploit your art is where sometimes people have problems. A lot of the things that you need to do to execute on exploiting your art are available to you really inexpensively or really cheap now compared to what they were a long time ago. There are a number of tools and resources out there. I mentioned the thing that I created, the Music Business Toolbox, which actually does have a lot of the forms and walk you through how digital distribution works and how to register for BDS and Mediabase and SoundScan and Street Pulse and Media Guide and getting your UPC codes and your ISRC codes and so forth. But there are also a lot of really great marketing tools. And I think one of the most important things for bands to recognize that it's not just about their art, but it's about effectively managing the relationship between the band, which is a brand, and you need to look at the band not just as you're not just a musician, but you're a brand, and you're exploiting your brand. And sometimes the term exploit can be looked at or has like some negative connotations, but that's really what you're trying to do, is you're trying to make money off of your brand. And you need to use things like text messaging and emails and your website and so forth to be able to make the connection between your band, your brand, and the fan, and ultimately figure out ways to be able to monetize it. And of course, there are lots of different ways to do that. And I would say I'm going to throw one thing out there is one of my favorite tools is something called there's this website called Reverbnation. Are you guys familiar with Reverbnation? So anyway, Reverbnation is for those of you who don't know, it's a really great tool, and there's others that do some similar things. But it's an email or CRM application, customer relationship management system, that gives you the ability to collect and then message people effectively through emails, and it also has tools for creating widgets and giving you the ability to stream or download or drive traffic to sales points and so forth. So it's a really cool system. It also gives you all the metrics associated with the distribution and viewing of your widgets and your downloads and so forth.
Should I say something? Okay. There we go. I want feedback here. Both of what these guys are saying are very important. However, all of that information coming at you at once does seem to take the fun immediately out of it right away. So it's all really important, but I think it may be on a smaller level is to start off with just the very, very basics, is your band name, owning your band name, the website, creating an LLC, which you can do online, no offense, without a lawyer, just these basics, so you're even going to get to the next step, and you've got that there. Definitely your brand, your logo, getting it all out there. It's great to hire a lawyer to do all of these things, but you have to have the money to do that. So you need to start out first of having your band get out there and actually knowing that you want to go through those steps, the very basic things of, you know, your name and the LLC and all that, you should do straight out the, straight out of the gate, copywriting your songs, all of that stuff. And then the other thing, even if it's before you get a lawyer involved, is anything you do, get it on paper. You know, even if it's just a basic agreement, same thing, you can pull it down offline or whatever. But whether you're doing, you know, recording or playing at a club or any of that stuff, just get something on paper so you've at least got that as a start. And then, you know, all of these other things are very necessary, but I think you have to at least get to a certain level to even go to that next step. And then, you know, lawyers are very important with that, and a lot of times takes priority over hiring a manager or an agent, because a lot of that stuff you have to do on your own beforehand, whereas, you know, the lawyer work you can't do on your own. The other thing, so it doesn't get out of hand, that I've seen happen to a lot of bands, is if you do engage in a lawyer, find out what it's going to cost you, and whenever you're talking to your lawyer, find out if he's on or off the clock, because sometimes that can really run away from you.
And make sure that the attorney has specific knowledge about the music industry.
Absolutely.
Not,
Don't get a personal injury
Exactly.
lawyer to do that for you.
Quite frankly, contracts in the music industry, if a lawyer outside the music industry looked at it, he would think it was an absolute joke. I mean, they are so unfair from their traditional sense that if a real estate lawyer or even a commercial lawyer looked at one of the contracts, he would say, you are not signing this. There's no way you're signing this, even though his client is going to be pretty much without a contract by not signing it. And we don't have choices. But we're talking about in here are indie obligations where you don't have to go sign those horrible contracts, and how you can try to make your business on your own and avoid some of that, and possibly the majors will start making some changes to their own contracts and see if we can make them a little more fair and universally accepted across the legal principles.
I just want to say one other thing too about that is that if as an independent artist, if you without signing a deal with a major label and or a big publisher, you control all of the rights associated with the work that you create. It gives you more opportunity to exploit that work. So you don't have to. So, for instance, if you're signed to a big record label and Budweiser comes and says we want to use this song in a new commercial, and your publisher says no, then the song doesn't, or the label says no, your songs you could potentially not be getting used. Or sometimes there may be there may not be the economic incentive for the labels, and this happens with an artist that I work with, where they're no longer signed to a major label, but the works that they created are the masters are owned by a major label, and there are a number of license requests that are not even responded to by the major label because they just don't respond. It's not enough money, or they just don't return the phone calls. And so it may be a $10,000 all-in request, $5,000 for the use of the master, $5,000 for the publishing. The group controls the publishing, so it'd be nice to get that $5,000, but the label says, that's really not enough money for us, so we're not going to grant the license to whatever, the video game company or whatever. However, if the band owned both of them, owned the master as well as controlled the publishing, then the video game company or Budweiser or whomever it was would be able to just make one phone call and get the use cleared. So anyway, this is one of the advantages of being independent and controlling all the rights. Real quick, I was just curious, how many people in here are artists? Wow, who represents artists? Any artist representatives, managers, lawyers? Okay.
And how many of you artists are running your own so-called label, or are you just kind of running yourself as just the band? And these are all label artists? Okay. I think it's important. I want to make another comment just because it'll make some good dialogue for up here, is that, I listened to the legal panel, and Paul Wachowski's back here was on the legal panel on the other side at 9 a.m., talking about a lot of the fair uses, and there's a piracy topic on it. They're talking about suing, individual people out there on piracy. The record companies have a tendency to blame all of their woes on piracy these days. And I'm not going to say that piracy is not a part of it. I'm just saying times are different than what they used to be. What we're facing right now is a total new use of entertainment dollars. And when we start breaking it down, you got the same kid in college that, in 1980s was, had various choices of how to spend his dollars, but they were limited into buying some CDs, maybe going on a date to the movies, or going to a football game or something like that. But nowadays, the kids are spending money on buying video games, buying a cell phone package, buying applications for the cell phone. Then he's got the same other entertainment dollars going with the internet, where he's got to get an internet connection, whether it's going to be broadband or whatever, and then buying different services on the internet, whether it's going to be some music or buying video games, buying porn, engaging in internet gambling when he can find that opportunity. And so just with those two things, and you could talk about buying the physical products, Guitar Hero and Rockstar and other video games, that the entertainment dollars are spread out a lot of different ways. And so it's trying to find the same audience that's going to buy your music. And them going out and getting it for free is horrible to a certain extent. That is it also benefiting you on the back end, where you're getting fans that are liking you. And so you give it away for free in order to get a following. Most artists do not recoup on a major record company deal. That's why you guys have an interest in keeping it on your own, where the money you make on your album sales, on your digital downloads, on your sponsorship dollars, on your publishing, all goes to your own pocket. I mean, you just don't have the dollars to take yourself on an international level. But reaching out and trying to get involved in all of these different companies is tough, because they're getting bombarded with artists like you calling them and trying to get your music to them. However, they are opening up their base now, where they're listening to the indies, because the majors aren't always right, and the majors quite often pick bands that don't succeed or have any reason to succeed. I mean, you're managing a pretty successful band. How are you guys reaching out, just trying to develop your revenue streams?
So, you work with a good publisher, hopefully, and same thing. A lawyer helps on that front as well, because lawyers are involved in a lot of licensing these days. And as far as the majors go, I think the majors are a dying breed. They're still around, but compared to what it used to be, so it's the same thing. But it's weighing that out of having everything on your own and putting it out yourself, but not having the power and connections of a quote major. So you need that hopefully, cash or whatever it's going to be, and the ability to get that. So you may get a revenue stream, but it's a matter of being able to get that, and what does it cost you to put it out there. So it's a tougher bet, but you definitely see it, like you said, changing. You represent 300 labels, so the same kind of thing. It's a challenge, but it's at least more open to bands these days, from recording your own product on up.
One thing that I've seen with major labels downsizing is there are now a lot of people out there who you can hire to work your independent release, who used to work for a major label like a month ago. Great radio promoters, great publicists. Just down the line, there's all these folks out there now that are available, that have a background in major labels.
Yeah. Actually, there's one thing that I think you should be very careful of in that regard, though. You can get people who have been at in the major label systems for years. Part of the problem sometimes working with people who come out of those systems is that they don't know how to scale effectively and work with the budgets for an independent release. And I've seen many times people who were the head of radio promotions at a big at a major label, they're no longer with a job, and they go and work with some independent label, and they take all their money and they spend all their money and basically run them out of business because they don't really understand all of the other areas that need to be handled in order to put a release out effectively and economically. So they may have been an incredible pop radio promotion person. They may be the best there is in the country, but that does not mean that they know how to negotiate a distribution deal or a digital distribution deal, or how much money you should spend in price and positioning at retail, or licensing deals, or how much money needs to be spent in publicity, or how those other areas of the release are affected and should be managed. So just be very, very careful that you don't get taken by someone who only knows, because generally the people who come out of the major label systems know that one piece of how the record business works, and in the traditional ways. And many times they're not familiar with, they don't know what Reverbnation is. They don't understand the terms of the deals with, they don't, a lot of times don't even know how to get a song on, iTunes and Rhapsody and Napster and so forth. And you've got to be very careful about hiring those people, although sometimes they can be great resources.
When I was referring to it, I was referring to more of specific roles, things that are easier to hire someone to do for you if you have the funds. But a lot of artists, every day it seems I meet another artist or work with another band who have got great songs, they're great live, they've made a great record, but it's just then the record's done. What are they going to do with the record? They get it. They have enough money to pay an engineer. They've made a deal with a producer. Maybe they self-produced it. They've paid to have it mastered. But at the end of the day, they've got this killer record. And it's how do you go from having the great record, but they've been turned down by managers because they're not to that level yet. They can't get a booking agent yet because they haven't expanded their fan base. How would you guys say, or what would be some of the first steps in taking it from that level to the next level and past that?
That's probably a good question for you.
There we go. And that's so common. You see it all the time as well. Other people's money, if you can, just to, for the basic, I've seen it where people have a great record, but they don't even have the ability to press a few thousand copies, which is now, very, very inexpensive. So that's the first step, is to just actually have, the product in hand. If you want, if you want 1,000 to sell, then make sure you print up at least 2,000, because you're going to have to be giving out, promo copies and all of that stuff. And then, the next thing is you've got to have a band that's going to tour, or at least start doing dates. The worst case is locally and just getting out there. I think we've all seen success stories of bands getting out there and starting and just selling out of their trunk of their car or whatever to fans. And you do have all these great tools now with Twitter and Facebook and MySpace and all of that stuff, where your best advertising and getting to people is fans out there and talking about your band and your product and all of that. And even if you're the great band that's doing the touring and all of that, on the other side you have to have this product so people can pass it out there. And then that's what's going to get your interest from agents and managers and hopefully some kind of label. But I think the root of that, and what you were saying, is you have to have a plan beyond just making a great record. Because if you do that, then you have it there, but there's got to be something past that, or else it's like, wow, I've got this great record, nothing happens, and then it just really, really builds on all your frustration. So, but if you've got that, friend, relative, whatever, that'll put some dough into it, and even with that, you get that down on paper, but and that's much better than putting your own money into it.
I just want to emphasize what he just said, because I think it's hugely important, and it's something that I see small bands mistakes that small bands make all the time, is that they'll have $10,000 to make a record and start their career. They'll spend $9,500 to make the record, make the album, and have $500 left, or spend $9,000 and have $1,000 left. If anything, it should be the other way around. Spend $1,000 to make the product, and $9,000 to start doing everything else. It should be the other way around.
Absolutely.
All the time you see people do that, and I say and like he also mentioned, is developing your web presence, and I say develop your connectivity to your fans and start building a small loyal fan base, and give them stuff. Do things to incentivize them to help you, and there's a lot of tools online that you can use to do that. So.
And also, I guess there's a question: is when do you make a full album? When do you make a full LP?
Yeah.
And we're kind of going back to an old world kind of theme of the single, and where we've got digital downloading and singles are becoming so much more prevalent. Do you go in and drop another 12-song, 13-song, 14-song, or even 20-song album like they used to do? And especially in the urban music industry, they're still doing 16, 17-song albums with caps at 11 songs, and the artist is eating all the publishing on the songs in excess of that. And so I think you make a decision when you're using your basically your marketing dollars. How much of it am I going to put to this recording, and how much am I going to put to marketing? So do you need 12 songs right out of the gate? Maybe you need 5 and a little promo in a sleeve that you can hand out at your shows, or even sell for $5 instead of $10. I mean, but a lot of these CDs you're giving away for free anyway. Another issue I want to touch on, and that Brian mentioned, connectivity to your fans. My offices are in a pretty famous recording studio in Atlanta, Tree Sound Studios, and I see a lot of different artists come in and out of there, and I represent rock bands, and I represent a lot more urban acts than I do rock bands, and I represent a lot of jam bands. And I found that I'm becoming a fan of the urban acts, and I'm becoming a fan of the jam bands, because they're so creative in their marketing approaches. You can get on the MARTA in Atlanta, and you've got people walking down the aisles with their iPods trying to sell their music, saying, "Here, listen to this. What do you think of that? Here, I can sell you this album. Here, I can sell you this single." And they're pushing their music like that. You come out of a club in Atlanta, your car is covered in flyers from the urban acts, and they are out there hustling. Where a rock band, I cannot get the rock bands I work with, and I can't beg them to go hand out flyers. I'm like, come on, guys, market yourself. Get out there and do it. I mean, you guys rock bands really have the best opportunity of getting gigs. The urban acts can't make money out there playing music and getting $300 a night, $500 a night, or whatever. The rock bands can, but they don't promote it. If they promote it, it seems like they do so much better. And the jam bands are so much better on the internet. They go out and crunch the internet, and they don't even try for radio play. They just want people to come to their shows where they sell tons of merch, and they get out there. I represent a band called Perpetual Groove, and another one that I think is kind of relevant. This is a band I represent called Leftover Salmon. And both of these bands are excellent at the internet marketing. They get out there and crunch it, and they also make themselves available for shows, but they never wear out a market. They stay away from markets for a certain amount of time so they can go back and make some more money. But they are avid about crunching the internet and trying to just determine fan bases and spins. And there's also things like eGetter to go steal emails and contacts off of MySpace and things like that. They've got creative ways of finding the people.
I need to comment on something that Brian said earlier, and it kind of also tied into what Scott said. And I would have to say, if you had the $10,000, spend $5 on making the record, and $5. My next panel is engineering and producing the perfect CD. So I felt that. And when you mention a lot of your clients, you're in a facility that's a studio facility, I feel like so many connections that I've made in the music business have been in recording studios. And I think the more interaction, personal interaction that you can have with people coming to events like this and going out and seeing live bands. I just think that's networking is absolutely one of the most valuable tools that you have. I think even if it's online networking or any way you can make connections with people. Another thing that's worked really well for me is interns. The University of Memphis has a really great music program, and every semester, there's folks that call me up and say, they're happy to come and work, and sometimes it doesn't really work out. They're not dedicated enough, but other times you have folks that come in that are just they're better than any employee that you could ever have. They're really great. But in making a 360 deal with yourself, that also means to me that you would also if you're a band leader, you're going to have musicians that you have to make deals with and other people in the band. So how have you guys in the past, had to, when you have to make a 360 deal with yourself, you're also having to make deals with people it's not just one person usually. So
No. You need to have everything in writing. A lot of people think contracts are there for one side to rip off the other side. I believe contracts are there so that it'll prevent arguments in the future. When you start arguing about something, like, dude, it's in the paperwork. Look at it. It's like, we've seen this before. Just stick with the guns, and we'll continue to make money. But you need these agreements, and I disagree with Andy. Is that you're saying do the LLC online? I've seen a lot of people do these LLCs online. The LLC itself is easy to do online. The operating agreement for the purpose of a band is not online, and so having identification there, like with certain band members, you might say, if you get a drug problem, you're out, buddy, and you can identify these things.
That's going to get rid of 90% of the bands.
Well, that's a drug problem. That's the ones that don't have the money to buy the drugs. And so, but you got to have these things where you're identifying exactly what the rules are, how they get out, and how the buyout is. I just spent 6 months negotiating the buyout of a band member that we kicked out of a certain band that I represent, but it's because they didn't have it in place on exactly how the calculation would be, and then you start going to actual valuation, but then an actual valuation costs more than the band's recording.
What do you do if you don't have money for a lawyer?
Well, it's tough luck.
Right. So you're saying don't do anything?
Yeah, but it's the same thing as saying you don't have the money for your taxes. I mean, you've got to hire and get things taken care of.
I mean, I think everybody's got to make their own decision on what their end goal is. If your goal is eventually to get signed by a major label or big company, that's fine. But my advice always is to try to make money along the way, try to develop your fan base, try to run your business in such a way that it's hopefully going to be profitable regardless of whether you ever do a deal with anybody else. One of the artists that I've had the opportunity to do a little bit of work with recently through his manager is this artist named Drake. I don't know if you guys know this guy Drake, but he's really built a tremendous buzz online. It got to the point where radio stations couldn't ignore it, and I think it was like 10 weeks in a row at like #1 on the urban charts and so forth. Well, I mean, I put his song up online and started selling it, with no label. We eventually did like a pressing and distribution deal. They did a deal, the management did a deal with a pressing distribution deal with Universal, but at that point we had all the leverage because when I put the song up in 10 days through iTunes and Amazon, it was mostly iTunes, we sold 300,000 downloads in 10 days. Now obviously that's an extreme example where someone, we had a lot of success, but there was at that point, what was the label going to do for us? You're gonna get it on the radio? It's gonna be better than #1? It's gonna be, you're gonna help us be better than #1 on iTunes? It's like, what is the label gonna do? So at that point, we were in that position, and there are more and more bands that are getting to the point where they're seeing that they do have that the ability to make the decision. But one of the things that he had was a good team around him that was able to help him execute. And until you get to the point where you've got those types of managers, you have to. The burden is on you as the individual. Yes. 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 Standing room only. Yeah. Yes. 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 And a TV show. Yes. Yeah. Well, he also was also introduced by arguably the biggest rapper in the world in the U.S. right now, which is Lil Wayne. So he certainly did have some major advantages. No question about there's no question about that. Yeah. Yes, but ultimately it's a very good deal for him, and it's not just about what the cash was up front, but it was what they're going to execute on, what responsibilities the management team is then able to offload onto somebody else. But at the same time, he's still in a position to be in a position of control and ownership going forward. So and
Well, I don't think there's a dollar amount except when you get to the recording cost. In terms of hiring a lawyer, well, I know, but when they're coming to me about the lawyer, and they always come in and they say, well, I want to do this independent project, and I want you to help us lay it out what we need to do and how much money we need. I always have the same conversation with them, like going, well, you can do it as cheaply as you can, or you can do it as expensively as you can. Any type of money is helpful. However, you got your basic costs on getting some recordings done, but then you're out there wheeling deals with producers for spec deals where they're going to take some points later and maybe no money up front. Then are you going to use their studio, or are you going to go to a major recording studio like Tree Sound, where I am, and where it's going to cost you $2,000 a day? So the budget deals are out there today where I always make this comment. The internet is the greatest advancement colossus of all time. I'm a firm believer in this, that communication has shrunk the world to our backyard, where we've got digital distribution is available. We're talking 300,000 downloads on digital distribution there. And did it cost a lot of money? Maybe, maybe not. But it's available. I mean, we got one of our acts onto the last series of Entourage, a group called Basic Vocab, and the show closed out, the one where Turtle got drink thrown in his face by Jamie Lynn for telling people that, you know, they did whatever on the airplane. But the show closed out with our song. The next thing you know, we had 150,000 downloads, and that didn't cost a nickel except for the recording cost that was done in a basement. And lawyers' fees can cost a lot, you know, but that's all negotiable as well. I mean, some lawyers will do it on the back end for free, but on the indie level, I'm generally not going to do it on the back end for free because a percentage of zero is zero. And so I've got to charge something, but I work flat fee deals on everything. I'm like going, let's put your priority list together. You need this done first, and this, and following all the way along here. And this is the cost for each one of these. This is a package deal I'll throw to you. And if it takes extra time, like the band deal I was telling you about, kicking a member out, I did a flat fee with the group. It took me 6 months, and so I ate a huge amount, but it's the deals you're negotiating. And so we're getting this big chop my head off thing back here by
Unfortunately,
the moderator,
we're
manager.
we're out of time. Really appreciate all of our panelists and being here today. I'm sure that these guys will be happy to answer any questions after the panel. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, moderator.